Speaker, the first time I ever spoke to a group like this was a Kiwanis Club. It was about 8 guys that were all like over 80 years old in Hearst, and it was at lunch. And so I was a little nervous. I looked at the president of the club. I said, "How long do I speak?" He goes, "Well, you can speak as long as you want to, but we leave at 1 o'clock. So I always try to quit about the time people leave because it's no fun speaking once you're gone. You know what I'm saying? And so today what we're going to talk about is relationships. Relationships, what life is all about. Everything else is just details. Some of you may be familiar with the Alameda County study that was done. Alameda County study was done a number of years ago. They studied 7,000 people, tracked their lives for 9 years, and here's what they discovered. That you could find people who ate the wrong things, drank the wrong things, didn't take care of their health, lived the wrong lifestyle, but had good relationships. And they lived longer, and they were happier than people that ate the right things, didn't drink the wrong things, and took care of their health, but had bad relationships. So here's the conclusion of the study. You're better off eating pizza with your friends than you are eating broccoli by yourself. I mean, that's about right. I read through the whole thing. That's what it comes down to. So relationships are what life is all about. Everything else is just details. And relationships are not easy, are they? They're not easy. I mean, this whole men-women thing, it all started when God made men out of dirt. I mean, we're made out of dirt. You ladies know that. That's why we do crazy things like smell our socks when we take them off. What is that all about, right? And women are fashioned out of a rib, so women communicate more than we do. Women use 30,000 words a day. We use 10,000 words a day. I heard about a guy who was stopped on Highway 121 by a policeman. He said, "Sir, did you know that your wife fell out of the car 5 miles ago?" He said, "Praise God, I thought I'd gone deaf." He said, "I didn't know. I didn't know what happened." So we're different. Men and women are radically different. We're different because of pillows. I only need one pillow. We got 14 pillows on our bed. I tried to make it one day. It's like working a Rubik's Cube. I couldn't do it. And then, God forbid, that we put our head on one of those pillows. I was going to put my head on one. Pat says, "Don't do that. Those are for show." I said, "Who's the show for? We're the only ones that ever come in here." You know? They think different. Women multi-program. They got several programs running at one time, and then they have pop-ups. Men only have one. At best, we've got one program running. And sometimes, ladies, you ask us, what are we thinking? There's nothing in there. It's empty. Screensaver's up. Fish are going by. We don't know. So relationships are not easy. Not easy. You know, the great thing about relationship with my wife is I took somebody to eat the other day, and I started circling the parking lot. The guy goes, "Aren't you going to park?" I said, "Honestly, after 32 years of marriage, I don't know where to park when my wife's not with me." Because for whatever reason, when I pull in a parking lot, she starts talking to me like I'm legally blind. There's one there, so I don't know. So relationships are just not easy. They're hard. So I thought about this. What would I talk about today? This is a crowd. I'll probably never see you again, never be around you again, some of you. What's the one thing I can talk about in regards to relationships? You know, I can talk about being kind and being respectful and all those things, and everybody wears an invisible placard that says, "Make me feel important." And those things are important because in today's environment, being kind and nice and respectful, we don't see it very often, do we? I'm so disappointed in our whole political process. Yeah. What happened to the day of disagreeing with people without being disagreeable? What happened to the day of stating your opinion without putting someone else down? I thought back to the people of the past, whether you're a Republican and it was Ronald Reagan, or you're a Democrat and it was Jimmy Carter. Those were men who knew how to disagree with still being respectful for the people they disagreed with. So I can talk about all of those things, but I thought, what's the one thing, if you never saw these people again, and you want to talk about building better relationships, what's the one thing you would talk about? And it hit me. It's forgiveness. Forgiveness. The most important component of any relationship is forgiveness. That goes for your spouse, with your children, your boss at work. It goes for the person that cuts in front of you on the freeway, or the person that has 15 items in the 10-item checkout line. The most important thing about that relationship is forgiveness. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about forgiveness today. Some people don't understand that forgiveness and trust are two different things. You can forgive someone and still not trust them. You know, I've had women who are in abusive situations, and they moved out from their husband, and then their husband comes to me and says, she says she's forgiven me, but she doesn't want me to move back. I said, it's because she can't trust you. Because forgiveness and trust are two different things. Forgiveness can be unconditional, but trust has to be earned. Forgiveness is not an event, it's a process. It's a process. So people will say, "I forgave him, but I still feel angry." You forgive again and again and again. Someone said sometimes it's like going up the down escalator. You know, you go up, you come down, you go up, but if you forgive enough, you reach a level point where you can talk about that person without anger in your heart. And that's what forgiveness is. Forgiveness and reconciliation. People say, I can forgive, but I don't know that I can be reconciled. Listen, there's sometimes you can't be reconciled. Either because the person that you forgive doesn't want to be reconciled, or it could be you don't know who that person is. When I was 20 years old, my brother was shot and killed by someone. We don't know to this day who it is. I've forgiven them. I've never been reconciled because we don't know who it is. So here's what I say: reconcile when possible, release when necessary. You forgive, you release that person. So forgiveness is something that we don't know a lot about, and we have misconceptions about. And there's a person who says, I can forgive, but I can't forget. If you've been hurt badly, you'll never forget. You won't forget. But you can forgive and forsake. You don't have to keep going back over it over and over in your mind. I'm convinced that the most powerful concept in all of relationship, the thing that's needed most, is forgiveness. Forgiveness does not make the other person right. It sets you free. So the greatest example, one of the greatest examples of that in our lifetime was October 2nd, 2006, when Charles Carl Roberts IV walked into that Amish school in Nichols Mine, Pennsylvania, a one-room wooden school with 23 children in there. He was a local delivery man. Everybody in the town knew him. He walked in and he told the boys in the class to go out and help him haul in some things, and they brought in nails and boards and ammunition and guns. He let the boys go. The teacher escaped, and she ran to a nearby farm to get help. At 10:42, the state trooper showed up. By then, he had barricaded the door. He had the girls inside, and they began to negotiate with Charles Carl Roberts. In 11:07, he opened fire. And by the time he had finished firing 13 rounds, every chair, the desk were splintered. By the time the state patrolmen came in there, two of those girls were already dead. Barbara and Marion Fisher, 13 and 11 years old, who volunteered to go first, hoping he wouldn't shoot the other girls. One of the girls died in the arms of a state trooper. 2 others died in the hospital, and the other 5 were wounded, some of them disabled for life. And what did that Amish community do? They forgave. In fact, in reading about their story, on the day of the shooting, a grandfather of one of the murdered Amish girls was heard warning some young relatives not to hate the killer, saying, "We must not think evil of this man." Another Amish father noted, he said about Charles Carl Roberts, he said he had a mother and a wife and a soul. I don't think there's anybody here that wants to do anything but forgive and not only reach out to those who have suffered a loss in that way, but to reach out to the family of the man who committed these acts. A Roberts family spokesman said an Amish neighbor comforted the Roberts family hours after the shooting and extended forgiveness to them. Amish community members visited and comforted the Roberts widow, parents, and parents-in-law. One Amish man held Roberts' sobbing father in his arm, reportedly for as long as an hour. The Amish have also set up a charitable fund for the family of the shooter. About 30 members of the Amish community attended Roberts' funeral, and Marie Roberts, the widow of the killer, was one of the few outsiders invited to the funerals of one of the victims. Marie Roberts wrote an open letter to her Amish neighbors, thanking them for their forgiveness, grace, and mercy. She wrote, "Your love for our family has helped to provide the healings we so desperately need. Gifts you've given have touched our hearts in a way no words can describe. Your compassion has reached beyond our family, beyond our community, and is changing our world. And for this, we sincerely thank you." Some commentators criticize the quick and complete forgiveness with which the Amish responded, arguing that forgiveness is inappropriate when no remorse has been expressed, and that such an attitude runs the risk of denying the existence of evil. Donald Crabell and 2 other scholars of Amish life noted letting go of grudges is a deeply rooted value in the Amish culture, which remembers forgiving martyrs such as Dirk Willems and Jesus himself. They explain that the Amish willingness to forgo vengeance does not undo the tragedy or pardon the wrong, but rather constitutes a first step toward a future and more hope. Forgiveness is the most powerful thing we can do in relationships. It's the thing that is missing most in our culture. From that person who hurt you deeply, every person you meet, their life is a sum of the people who hurt them deeply, and those who love them profoundly. I'm one of those people. I'm blessed. I was loved more profoundly than I was hurt deeply, but there are other people that have been hurt deeply a lot more than they've been loved profoundly. And forgiveness is extended even to those people. Even though you can't forget, you'll never forget. You can forsake, and you extend forgiveness. Do they deserve it? No, but you extend it to them. Does it make them right? No, but it sets you free. The greatest thing I could talk to you about today is that one single thing in relationships, and that's forgiveness. And in the end, life is all about relationships, and everything else is just details. God bless you. Thank you.